Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. In this episode I'm going to show you how to play MeowTopia by Runes Editions. This is a worker placement game in which every player is a cat or a group of cats trying to make a utopian country, MeowTopia. And if you've ever heard of the game Jungle Rumble, this is basically the same game, just published new. So let's open up the box, see what's inside, and then I'll explain how to play the game. MeowTopia. Let's check it out. So it has some text on the back of the box. Unfortunately, this is all in French. I do read some French, but not so well that I could explain you everything that's on here. But the game itself is language independent. It uses all kinds of icons. So that won't be much of a problem. Let's open it up. Okay, so MeowTopia. First of all, this is a French rule book. Yes, this is all in French. So I'm gonna have to look up a English or even a Dutch version of the rules online. No problem. There's these cute cat tokens, and they have a side on which they are awake and a side on which they are asleep. Cool. So that's this board. There's another one. More punch board tokens. These cards. And these are fields. Okay, more of these kitties. There's 6 of each. 4 different kitties. More fields and all of these tokens and these. Okay, then we have this which looks like a score track with 1 through 40 on it. Some actions here with a field and a pond. And then there's a nice looking insert, very basic but functional. We have an extra Ziploc bag for all those tokens we're gonna punch. And we have these blue wooden tokens here. Okay, and what else is here? These are the player boards. So we have 1 board for each player. Well, let me just flip that out like that. So see, they're all, let me see, are they all identical? They should be. Just the art is different. So yeah, so it kind of explains with icons what you can do. All right, let's explain the rules. The setup for MeowTopia is as follows. You take the scoring board, you put it in the middle of the table, and you take the kitty tokens that you have that keeps track of the score later. You put them on the side. You take your field tiles, your irrigation sticks, and you put them on the board. The board also has all these icons that explain how many points you're going to score for all the things that you're going to collect during the game. You take the kitty tiles, the workers here, and you place them somewhere in easy reach. You take your gold and your food tokens, which have a 1, 2, and 5 denomination. And you have these -3 penalty tokens as well. You place them next to those. Then each player takes a player board which has also these icons that will explain your actions during your turn. Each player also takes 2 fields and 1 irrigation stick, making these fields irrigated, so you can flip them over to the irrigated side and they will produce 1 food each, which is that icon over there. You place the 5 action tiles next to the board as well within easy reach. They also have icons on them that explain what they do. And each player takes 2 of his tribe's worker kitties and places them next to the board. Then 1 player takes the first player marker, and that's when you start playing. Now a fun fact is that all these kitties were actually based on real-life kitties. So here we see Dinah with the 1 eye, which she also has in the artwork, very cute. there's Percival Clarence, there's Cha-Cha, and Freya. So that's a nice touch. They put that on the side of the board of the French Runes Editions game. Now in a two-player game, you take 22 of those field tiles and 22 of the irrigation sticks. In a three-player game, you take 25 of each. And in a four-player game, you take 30 fields and 28 irrigation sticks. And you just take the leftover tiles and sticks and you put them on the side, and any kitties that you're not playing with, you can also put on the side. So let's start playing. So the goal in MeowTopia, or Jungle Rumble, which was the previous edition of this game, is as follows. You need to score as many victory points, of course, by expanding your tribe with kitties and having lots of food and selling food to shopkeepers and having irrigated fields. So it kind of explains that all here. So let's go over these real quick. You get 3 victory points for each worker or shopkeeper kitty that you own. You get 1 victory point or 2 victory points for each of these irrigation sticks, depending if they irrigate 1 or 2 fields, which kind of means that a field could produce double points. So for example, if I have this at some point, then this stick would produce 2 points and this stick would also produce 2 points. Thus this field is basically counting double. So keep that in mind. Then you get 3 victory points for each gold sold to one of your merchants. I'll explain that later. And you get 2 victory points for each food sold to a merchant. And in your reserve, if you have any gold or food left, then 1 gold will count for 1 victory point and 2 food will also be 1 victory point. So that's the goal of the game. So let's explain how that works. So starting with the first player, you've got 3 phases during your round. And those phases are, first of all, you need to wake up your kitties. So these kitties have a awake side and a sleepy side. So every time you use a kitty for an action, it goes to sleep and you need to wake them up. Now, if at the start of your turn you don't have any sleeping kitties, you get 1 food. If you only have 1 kitty asleep, you get to wake it up for free. And if you have 2 or more kitties asleep, you need to pay 1 food per kitty that you want to wake up. And during that same phase, you can also sell gold or food to any shopkeepers you have. Now these spots are reserved for shopkeepers. Basically you can have as many shopkeepers as you want, but they just printed 3 because basically that is normally the most shopkeepers that you're going to want. But it's technically possible to have more. So what does that mean? So irregular workers you can send out to do these actions, which we'll explain in the second phase. But you can also, whenever you recruit a kitty, put it on one of these spots and turn it into a shopkeeper. And when you're selling gold or food to that shopkeeper, then you need to place that token that you're selling on that shopkeeper, and it stays there for the rest of the game, indicating that this shopkeeper will only take food in this example, or if you have a shopkeeper and you sold gold to it, then it will only take gold for the rest of the game, and you can only sell 1 of each to your shopkeepers in that waking up phase. So if you want to sell more and more food, then it could be handy to have multiple shopkeepers taking food, for example. Oh, and I forgot to mention that at the start of the game, each player also gets 1 gold and 4 food. That's important enough, so I'll just quickly grab those. There we go. So right, so I've woken up my kitties. I don't have any sleeping kitties, so I get that extra food. And then I go to the second phase. Now I get to choose one of these actions, and I take one of those tiles to my side, to my board, and I can activate that action. So let's go through them one by one. So here's the kitty that goes to market, and basically if you send 1 kitten, you get 2 food. If you send 2, you get 5 food, and so forth. You can send up to 6 kittens and get 20 food. So that's an option you can do. You could also send a kitty to go on a burglar trip and steal gold for you. So for each kitty you send, you get gold. Then you could also recruit new kitties with this guy here. He goes to the recruiting stand, and you take a kitty and some gold to pay the man, and you get a new kitty. And you can't use that kitty right away, it just comes to you, because this is basically your kitty actions, and that's the reward. And then you move on. You can also send a worker kitty to irrigate your fields, so you get one of those irrigation sticks per worker kitty that you're sending. Or you can have them plow the fields, and then you get one field for each kitty you send. So let's start with that. I'm gonna go ahead and take this tile. I'm gonna send both my kitties to work on the field, after which they will fall asleep. So I take 2 of these field tiles and I put them on my side of the board, and they always have to be adjacent to existing fields, so I can't put them here. I could put them over there, for example, or like that. That's also a possibility. Let's just put them there. So now, once I've done this, then the other players can also follow that same action, but only with one kitten. So let's say, for example, this player, he's thinking I could use an extra field right away, so I'm going to send one of my kitty, the maximum number, and I'm going to take a field, and he's going to place it over there. So if you don't do that, you get to either flip over a sleeping kitty, or just like it's printed over here, if all the kitties are already awake, they could pass and get a free food. So in this case, that player, he doesn't need an extra field, he's got a different strategy, so he's not going to send out a kitty, but he will be rewarded one food for having them all awake. Okay, so then we're back at my my turn, and we've done this phase, and then the third phase is to feed my kitties. So for each kitty that I have, either awake or asleep, shopkeeper or worker, they need to be fed, and they all take 2 food each. Now firstly, I get to count the food generated by my fields. So these 2 fields produce food. 2 food is enough to satisfy 1 kitty, and I've got 1 left, so I need to pay 2 food, so I'll just simply take a 2 food token and put it back in the bank, and they're both fed and happy, and that's it. That's my entire turn. Now if at some point you're producing more food on your fields than you have kitties, you don't get to take the excess food and put it in your stash. That's just wasted. So this is simply helping you feed the kitties, and the rest comes out of your stash, which actually goes into this nice little basket over here. So then that's the next player's turn, and you don't move the first player token yet, because you finish a full round first, and then you pass on the first player token. So what I like to do is use this one. This is just a MeowTopia tile that came with the punch boards, and I like to use that to indicate whose active turn it is. So now this is the active player, and so that person does exactly the same. He's got 1 sleeping kitty, so he gets to wake that up for free. And then he could, if he had shopkeepers, sell some food or gold to the shopkeepers, but he doesn't. And every time you recruit a kitty by going here to the kitty stall and you recruit one, then you get to choose whether that kitty becomes a worker or a shopkeeper, just by simply placing it on the right spot. So that player has these 4 options still to choose from, and let's say that player will want, yeah, sure, I'm gonna recruit a new kitty. So he takes that tile, he flips over 2, no, he's only got 1 gold, so he can only flip over 1 kitty, and have him bring that gold to the vendor of kitties, and he takes 1 of these of his own kitties from the stack and puts it in his field over here. So he could use it as a worker or as a shopkeeper. So let's just make him a shopkeeper. So that's that. He can't sell yet, because that's only during the waking phase. We're now at phase 2. So now the other players can follow along. So that player can say, do I want to recruit an extra kitty? Yeah, you know, why not? So pays 1 gold, flips over 1 kitty, and recruits one extra kitty, but it's going to make it a worker. And then it's my turn again, and I get to decide I can't follow because all my kitties are asleep. But that does mean I get to pass and flip one over back to the awake side for free. So now that player has done the action, and now the player has to feed his kitties. So that's 2 food over there for one of the kitties, and 2 food from his reserve for the second kitty. And that's that turn. So then this player is now the active player, and he does the same. And that goes on until one of the requirements is met for ending the game. So the requirements for ending the game are threefold. It ends when either one of the players takes the last of these field tiles, or when one of the players takes one of the last irrigation field sticks. And it also ends when one of the players already has recruited all 6 of his own kitties and wants to go and recruit another one, and then he takes one of the other kitties' tiles, which makes him have 7 kitties, and that also marks the end of the round. And then you play until you're back at the last player, and then you start counting up your victory points. So let's continue where we stopped off. So now it's that player's turn, and that player is in the morning. You wake up your kitties. He's got only 1 kitty that is sleeping, so he gets to wake that one up for free. Then he or she can sell gold or food to vendors, but he doesn't have any. So then the second phase is the afternoon, the working phase, and he gets to pick one of the 3 remaining actions here. So that's either sending kitties for food. So let's see, how many kitties do we have? We got 3, so that means I would need 6 food. That's 2 right here, 2 and another 2. So we're fine on the food front. So we don't need to send any kitties for food. Irrigation is also not very handy because we don't have any fields yet. I could place one adjacent to my fields for later use, and it would give me victory points at the end of the game, but I'm going to try and get some extra fields before I irrigate. So I'm going to send my kitty out for stealing gold. So how much gold do we need? You know what? That player just decides to send all of his kitties out on a hunt, 3 of them, and they take home 3 gold. So now all the other players get to decide if they want to follow that action. So do I need gold? I could send one of my kitties, but then, well, I could, because then the first player token will move to the next player when this person, when I have followed or not. So then I would be last, and I perhaps could flip them over for free if I skipped. So let's see. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna use that kitty before the round ends, and I'm gonna send 1 kitty out to hunt for some gold. So I take an extra gold. Then that player gets to decide if he wants to do the same. And well, that player is going to be the first player next, so he doesn't want to have spent all his kitties, so he's gonna pass, which means he gets to wake up this kitty for free. Alright, so we've all followed the action. Now it's time in the evening to feed the kitties. So like we saw, that player has 3 kitties, so that's 1 kitty fed and 4 more food for the other 2 kitties. So there we go, and that player's turn is done. Now each player has been the active player. Each player has taken one of those action tiles, and there's 2 left on the table. Then each of these remaining actions gets 1 food token, which means that the next time they are chosen by a player, that player also receives an extra food. Then all players put their tiles back on the table, so they are all available again, like so. And also, I should mention, if you cannot feed your kittens with enough food, then you got 2 options. You can either fire a kitty, so you take one of your kitties and you just put it back on the stack, and you gain 3 food back in return. And mind you that if you fire a merchant that already has some goods on it, those goods disappear as well. So you really don't want to fire merchants. And the other option is to starve your kitty and not feed it, but then for each kitty you can't feed, you get these -3 point tokens, which is not a good thing because that will put you back on your scoring. Okay, so let's continue. So everybody's done. I pass the first player token to the next player. Let me just put that over here. Also gets the active player token, which I just invented basically. And then that player gets to start by waking up his kittens in the morning. All the kitties are already awake, so he gets 1 extra food as compensation. Now that player is thinking, on my second phase I might want to go for this one because this one has an extra food on it and I could use some extra food having 3 kitties. So let me just quickly check how much I have during my first phase still, because I can send some food to my merchant and sell it for extra points. So let's see, I've got 2 here, so that's 1 kitty fed, and I need 2 more. Now if I send both my kitties off to get some food here, that means I get 5 food and I only need 4 for the remainder. So basically I could just sell off all my food, and I also get this one, so I'll even have some left over. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all these 3 and put it on this vendor. So this, I can't, I can only do 1 per turn. So that's a mistake I made on my first play. You can only sell 1 food per turn to a vendor. And once it has accepted food, it will stay a food vendor for the rest of the game. If it accepts gold, then it will only accept gold for the remainder of the game. So okay, it's safe for me to sell some food to the vendor. And then I will take this action, as you can see here, and he's going to send both of the workers to get 5 food, and I also gain this extra food. So get food, flip over my workers, and gain 5 food. I'll just take this 5 food fish token. All right, I'll just put them in the basket where they belong over here. So that's that player's turn, and now he has to feed them in the evening. So feeding them will cost me 2, and I need more. I need 4 more, so I'm gonna have to exchange this one right away, and I'll get 1 back. So I still have 4 food left, which is nice for the next round. I will have enough food to feed them again. Right, so then the active player token passes on to the second player over there, and that player gets to do the same. So, oh no, first of all, before I forget, I get to follow the action. So does this player want to send a kitty to gain food? Well, the player can't because they're all asleep, so he gets to flip one over for free. And it's my turn, and I do the same, so that's that. Then the player token passes. So now this person has 2 kitties asleep, so there's no waking them up for free. I have to pay 2 food to wake them both up, but I only have 1 food, so I can actually only wake up 1 kitty. And I have to pay for that. I don't get to do it for free because there's another one asleep. So you need to think ahead in this game to really optimize your turn. So okay, that wasn't optimal, but still I've got 2 kitties that are awake, and I get to pick one of these. So I think I want some extra fields. So he's going to send 2 of the kitties that were awake off to plow the fields, takes 2 field tokens, puts them next to the other fields. So now I get to decide if I want to follow that. Well, I already have 2 fields. I really want to irrigate, but maybe I can send multiple cats to irrigate later and get 2 of those sticks and then irrigate more fields. So you know what? I'm going to send one of my kittens and grab another field. All right, so then that player gets to choose, but both kitties are asleep, so he passes, and that one is woken up for free. So then we're back at that player. He passes this on to me. Oh, he needs to feed him first. So we've got, let's see, oh, we've got a problem here. We've got 3 kitties and no food. So yeah, that is a problem. I just noticed. So we've got, well, 2 food, so that's 1, but I still need to pay 4. So that's a problem. So in this case, he's going to have to fire one and gain 3 food. Now let me just quickly see if I can use that for the other one. So yes, I just checked. When you fire one of your kitties and you get that food, you can use that food for feeding the rest. So I'm gonna have to discard this 2 food token to feed the second one, or actually was the third one, because one got fired. Poor kitty. If I couldn't, or I didn't want to, then I would have had to take one of those penalty points. I really don't want that. So let's see, where were we? That player is done. Now it's my turn to pick one of the actions, so the last one. Let's see, first I have to wake up my kitties, and I've got 2 of them asleep because I used one to get a field, so I need to pay for them. So I'm gonna wake both up, pay 2 food. Now I have to be careful because I need 1 extra food here. So, but if I take that one, I get that extra food. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send both my kitties. I don't have any merchants, so I can't sell anything. Take both my kitties, send them to get to irrigate the fields. I get an extra food, which means I have now 4 food, which is enough. But I also get to take 2 of these irrigation sticks, which will give me a lot more food, because now I'm going to place this one over here, flipping these 2 over. So I now generate 4 food, and I'm going to put that one over here as well, irrigating this field, and I still have a spot for another field that will be instantly irrigated. So now I've got 5 food, and I only have 2 kitties. So that doesn't mean, like I said, I get an extra food at the end of each round, because that is just basically going to waste if you're not using it. But at least I can get to keep my stack here. So I chose that one. Now the other players can follow again. So we go around again, and that player decides, let's see, do I want irrigation? Well, it could be handy, you know, and I still have 1 left. And but he's going to be the next active player. So he doesn't want all his kitties asleep, because that's going to cost him food. So he's going to pass and wake up one of those kitties for free. That player, does he want to follow with the irrigation? He can't, because all his kitties are asleep, and he wakes one up for free as well. So we're back to me. I'm done. So everybody has taken their turn as the active player, and then the first player token goes there again. Oh, I still need to feed my kitties. Always remember. But I've got plenty, so I've already fed them. So now then the first player marker goes to that player, and he's also the active player, and so on and so forth. So remember to place all of these back. These 2 that were not taken get some gold. Place these back. Here's the other one. And then that player starts over, waking up the kitties. Only one's asleep, so that gets woken up for free. No vendors, so nothing to sell. Picking an action. Other players following that action. Feeding the kitties. Passing the active player to the second player, etc. So then at the end, you check what you have. So let's say, for example, at some point in the game, I had some vendors, and I had some gold on, well, we'll just use these, some gold on that, some food on that. Maybe I had some food left, and let's say that's it, okay? So right now, my scoring would be as follows. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 kitties. Asleep or awake, vendor or merchant or a worker, doesn't matter. I get 3 victory points for each. So I take my token, and I get 12 victory points for having 4 kitties. So I'm over there. Then I check how many fields do my irrigation sticks touch. So this one is worth 2 points, this one is worth 2 points, and this one is worth 1 point. So if I had placed it over here, it would have been worth 2 points as well. So in this case, I get 5 extra points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I check if my vendors have any gold or food. So I've got 2 food on this vendor, which is 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I've got 2 food here, and food is worth 2 victory points each. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I check my reserve. Do I have any food or gold left? No gold, but I've got 3 food, but only 2 food is 1 victory point, so I get 1 extra victory point. So that puts my ending score at 28, and then everybody does that, and the player with the most points wins. And if you're on a tie, you check how many of your cats are awake, and the person with the most kitties awake, then that's the tiebreaker. So I also forgot to mention that each worker kitty that is awake at the end of the game also gets you 1 food. So I didn't get any, but that player would have gotten, 1 extra food for each of those kitties. That would count, so for 1 point extra in this case. And that's how you play MeowTopia by Runes Editions. The game also has a variant that you can play by using the backside of these action tiles, and they all have 2 actions on them, basically making all the actions available twice. So what happens then is that the active player picks one of these, and so for example, if that active player wants to choose this action and sends a couple of kitties to grow some fields, then the other players who want to follow have to choose the other option. So that gives you something extra to think about. But again, that action will be available again later. So that kind of changes up the game and you have to think ahead. It's really nice. I think, so my thoughts on the game are pretty positive. I really like the artwork. I think it's super cute with all the kittens. The icons are very clear. I mean, everything is here that you need to know, and you won't forget because all the phases are here. And it tells you when you can do things like the merchant is in the morning, and then once you pick an action, you can't sell to the merchant anymore because you've passed that. And then you need to feed them, so keep that in mind. And well, the icons on the tiles are also very clear. Just no mistake of what you can do there. It's pretty clear. You've got your worker icon with the pickaxe, and the merchant has this this bandana around his head. You've got the 1, 2, and 5 tokens. It's all very clear. You've got your penalty tokens that you need to subtract from your total, should you have any. The track is very handy, so that works very well too. Yeah, the tiles, so they have the non-irrigated and the irrigated side. That's also very handy, an improvement over Jungle Rumble, I should say. So overall, the way this game has been produced is a big plus in comparison to the original. And the art is cute, like I said. I think the theme is great. It's kind of thinky. I mean, you have to think ahead. You have to make sure you can feed your kittens, or you will, face the penalty, or have to fire kitties. So that's something to take into account. I like the way the rounds play out. I like the way that, each first player does something, and then all the other players do something as well. And all the players can follow. So there's basically a round within a round within a round. And then this passes along when everybody's done that. And yeah, these help you keep track of that. So that's also very handy. So component-wise, this is also perfect. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's not too heavy. It kind of reminds me of games like Puerto Rico, for example. And it's light enough so you can play it with just about everybody. Everybody will understand this. So it's a family game. It's got a bit of worker placement, not per se, because you're taking an action, but that's more or less the same. Although that other players can still follow that same action, albeit with just one kitty. And there's some engine building going on here because you need to have your food for feeding your kitties. There's some resource management. Am I going to sell my resources to the merchants to gain more points at the end of the game, or do I need that food for feeding my kitties? And am I going to follow this action by flipping over one of my kitties and sending him to work to gain one of those benefits? Or do I need them, and can I just better keep them, and perhaps if they're all flipped over, gain some food for not following that action, which is also handy. So there's quite a lot of things that you need to take into account. And but it's not too heavy. It's not a game that will give you analysis paralysis. So all in all, it plays in about, I think, about an hour on average. And even the first time I played it, I played, I think, an hour and a half because we had to explain things and you had to really keep track of whose turn it was, which is why I really like that we have this extra MeowTopia token. So yeah, all in all, I can only give this game a big thumbs up. I would certainly recommend trying this one out. That's MeowTopia by Runes Editions.
So that was MeowTopia by Runes Editions. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see you next time on Board Game Heaven.